So you've fallen in love with a color from one designer. Does that mean that you are only limited to the styles that that color comes in, or the manufacturer who makes that particular shade? Not necessarily. Today we're going to be cracking the code on color comparisons, and we're going to be looking at 3 of my favorite colors from 2 of my favorite brands. And stay tuned to the end as I'm going to show you how to tell if your favorite shade has a half sibling by another designer. First, we're going to be looking at 12FS8 Shaded Praline that you'll see here in this Sarah, and Raquel Welch Shaded Wheat, which is shown here in color RL1422SS. And Malibu Blonde in color 12FS12 by Jon Renau, shown here in Heidi. But before we get too far into it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell so that you never miss a wig review or tutorial like this one that's posted weekly.
I'm going to take these wigs outside because the sunlight really highlights the differences. You'll notice here that Shaded Praline and Shaded Wheat both have very similar base colors, platinum highlights, and dark roots, but the Shaded Wheat is a little bit warmer with some more red undertones in the sunlight. The shading on both is a very similar shade with this dark golden brown. The first thing you'll notice when we compare the Malibu Blonde to the Shaded Praline is that the root on the Malibu Blonde is a dark blonde, while the Shaded Praline is a light brown, and that does make a pretty significant difference here. Remember, these are both from the same designer, Jon Renau, and that means that that same 12F base color and highlight pattern is going to be the same for both pieces. The only difference is that darker rooting on the Shaded Praline is throughout the entire piece, and it really adds a lot of depth and dimension to these colors. And now we will look at all 3 of them together in the sunshine, and you can see that while they looked very similar indoors, when you take them outside into the sunlight, they do have some subtle differences. But they also have a ton of similarities. All 3 of these are rooted shades with a darker color at the root versus the base. They all feature a kind of a light sandy blonde type of a base color, and they all have very light platinum highlights. So now let's think through how to make that wig compilation work for you by cracking the color codes. Most wig makers kind of subscribe to the same common color codes to describe their colors. The Jon Renau colors both had a base of 12, which is the lightest of the browns. The Raquel Welch had a base color of 14, which is the darkest of the blondes. So you can see that those 2 colors are very, very similar. But the color codes don't end there. You also can compare the colors of the highlights and also the shading. The highlight color on the Shaded Wheat is a 22, while the highlights on the Shaded Praline and Malibu Blonde are 24B. So again, very, very similar. And even though the color codes are not exact, you can see that when you put the 3 of them side by side, they do have a lot of similarities. The color codes won't tell you everything. It's not going to tell you how the highlights are compiled, but it will give you a lot of good information.
So all of these colors look very, very similar, but of course they are not identical to each other, right? In the case of Raquel Welch and Jon Renau, these are 2 different designers' interpretations of a similar kind of color palette. Even within the same designer, where we had 12FS12 Malibu Blonde and we looked at that next to 12FS8 Shaded Praline, those 2 colors were very, very similar, but they definitely had a little bit of that impact from the darker rooting. Now, all 3 of these styles I wear completely interchangeably, right? I do like to keep a consistent style when I go to work, but I swap in and out the synthetic 12FS8, the synthetic 12FS12 with a human hair sienna 12FS8 that you will see in that video right there, which is my kind of daily wear human hair wig. And of course, I throw in some Shaded Wheat in here and there when I want this cute little short style. So you'll definitely notice that they are not identical, but they are very, very similar. Similar enough that you can probably get away with swapping them out. If you are a stickler for the details and you want them to be exact, It is going to be a little bit more difficult, of course, because, you know, they do try to design these things with some variation. But if you are feeling like you're limited in style because of your particular color code and you are willing to be a little bit flexible in the color patterns, you can definitely open up a lot of doors just by looking at the color codes and seeing if there are color codes for other designers or within the same designer that have enough similarities that people are not going to notice. I will say that on a day-to-day basis, we pay a lot of attention to the little tiny details in our hair. However, most other people probably don't. So don't sweat the small stuff. Feel beautiful in whatever you choose to wear, because if you feel beautiful, other people are going to share in that confidence as well. Again, I did put a link in the description to all of the styles that I tried here today, as well as my favorite products for synthetic wigs. Again, leave me a note in the comments to let me know if there are other color comparisons that you would like to see. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please, 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 it really helps me out if you give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell so that you never miss a wig review or tutorial like this one that's posted weekly. I appreciate you tuning in today, and I will see you next week.